Good evening, dear listener. Tonight, we drift back to the quiet corners of Victorian England, where life moved at a gentler pace, and each day unfolded with the steady rhythm of familiar routines. Whether you are nestled comfortably in bed or listening with eyes closed, let yourself be carried back to an era when time seemed to flow more slowly, when the simple acts of daily life held a ceremonial quality that transformed ordinary moments into peaceful rituals. That we begin our journey in the pre-dawn hours of a typical London morning in 1863, when the city awakened not to the harsh buzz of electric alarms, but to the gentle chiming of church bells echoing across cobblestone streets. The first sounds of the day were soft and organic. The clip-clop of milk-cart horses, the distant call of chimney sweeps beginning their rounds, and the whispered conversations of servants preparing their households for another day of Victorian refinement. In the grand townhouse of the Ashworth family on Belgrave Square, the daily routine began with the quiet efficiency that characterized well-managed Victorian households. Mrs. Eleanor Ashworth, the lady of the house, would not rise for another 2 hours, but already her world was being carefully prepared by hands that moved with the practiced grace of long-established tradition. In the basement kitchen, Mrs. Margaret Thompson, the head cook, had been awake since 4 in the morning, her day beginning with the ritual of lighting the great cast-iron range that would serve as the heart of the household for the next 18 hours. The range, a magnificent specimen of Victorian engineering, required careful attention to achieve the proper temperatures for the day's elaborate meals. Mrs. Thompson would tend to the fire with the devotion of a priestess, adding coal with measured precision, adjusting dampers with the knowledge gained through decades of experience. The kitchen itself was a marvel of Victorian domestic architecture, with its high ceilings designed to carry away cooking smoke and its carefully planned layout that allowed for the efficient preparation of elaborate meals. Copper pots hung in gleaming rows along whitewashed walls, each piece polished to mirror brightness by the kitchen maids who took pride in maintaining the tools of their craft. The massive wooden table that dominated the center of the room had been scrubbed to pale smoothness by countless years of daily use, its surface marked by the gentle indentations left by rolling pins and chopping knives. As Mrs. Thompson worked, the scullery maid, young Sarah Williams, would already be at her station beside the great stone sink, washing the previous evening's dishes in water heated over the kitchen fire. Sarah's work was simple but essential, requiring the steady rhythm of scrubbing and rinsing that would continue throughout the day. The dishes themselves told the story of Victorian refinement. Delicate china painted with tiny roses, crystal glasses that caught the morning light like captured raindrops, and heavy silver pieces that required special attention to maintain their lustrous shine. The daily bread-making began while the household still slept, Mrs. Thompson's hands working the dough with movements that had become as natural as breathing. She would knead the mixture on the floured wooden board, feeling for the precise texture that would yield perfect loaves, her experienced touch able to judge the dough's readiness by subtle changes in elasticity and smoothness. The yeast, carefully maintained in a corner of the kitchen where temperature remained constant, would transform the simple mixture of flour and water into something magical, filling the kitchen with the warm, comforting aroma that would gradually permeate the entire house. While bread rose in covered bowls near the range, Mrs. Thompson would begin preparing the elaborate breakfast that Victorian society expected of respectable households. Porridge would simmer slowly in a heavy pot, stirred occasionally with a wooden spoon worn smooth by years of use. The oats, imported from Scotland, would gradually absorb the milk and cream, becoming creamy and satisfying, ready to be served with brown sugar and fresh butter, churned just yesterday in the dairy attached to the kitchen. The breakfast preparations extended far beyond simple porridge. Mrs. Thompson would prepare kippers, their silver skins glistening as they cooked over moderate heat, filling the kitchen with the rich aroma of smoked fish. Fresh eggs from the household's own hens would be prepared in various styles. Some soft-boiled to perfection, their shells painted with tiny cracks that would allow easy removal. Others scrambled with cream until they achieved a fluffy consistency that Mr. Ashworth preferred. Rashers of bacon would sizzle in cast-iron pans, their fat rendering slowly to create the proper texture and flavor that distinguished good cooking from mere sustenance. The daily ritual of tea preparation required its own special attention. Mrs. Thompson would warm the silver teapot with hot water, ensuring that the vessel reached the proper temperature before adding the carefully measured leaves. The tea itself was a blend specially ordered from Fortnum and Mason, its leaves selected and mixed according to the family's particular preferences. The brewing process could not be hurried. The tea would steep for exactly 4 minutes, no more and no less, timed by the kitchen clock, whose steady ticking marked the passage of each carefully orchestrated moment as the morning progressed. Other members of the household staff would begin their own daily routines. Mrs. Catherine Foster, the housekeeper, would emerge from a comfortable room near the kitchen, her keys jingling softly as she moved through the house, unlocking cupboards and storerooms, distributing supplies and assignments to the various maids under her supervision. Mrs. Foster's domain extended throughout the house, and she took pride in maintaining standards that reflected well upon the family's reputation and her own professional competence. The housemaids, Mary Peterson and Anne Richardson, would begin their daily cleaning rituals with the precision of soldiers following well-established battle plans. Each room had its own requirements, its own schedule of daily, weekly, and seasonal maintenance that ensured the house remained a perfect example of Victorian domestic achievement. They would move through the rooms with quiet efficiency, their movements choreographed by years of experience and training. The morning cleaning began with the drawing room, where yesterday's fire would be cleared away and fresh coals prepared for the day ahead. The brass fender around the fireplace would be polished until it gleamed like gold, while the marble hearth would be scrubbed and whitened with a mixture that left it spotless and bright. Every surface in the room received attention. The mahogany furniture was dusted and polished with beeswax until it reflected the morning light, while the upholstered chairs and sofas were brushed to remove any dust or lint that might have settled during the night. The heavy velvet curtains that framed the tall windows were brushed carefully to maintain their rich texture, while the windows themselves were cleaned with a vinegar solution that left the glass crystal clear, allowing the filtered London sunlight to stream into the room with maximum clarity. The Persian carpet that covered most of the floor was swept with tea leaves that had been saved from yesterday's service. The damp leaves picking up dust while leaving behind a subtle fragrance that spoke of careful household management. Each piece of furniture in the drawing room had its place and purpose. The grand piano, a magnificent broadwood that had been Mrs. Ashworth's pride since her marriage, received daily attention from Mary Peterson, who would dust its ebony surface and polish the brass pedals until they shone. The sheet music on the piano's music stand was arranged just so, with the latest compositions from popular composers prominently displayed. The piano bench, upholstered in green silk that matched the room's color scheme, was positioned at the exact angle that Mrs. Ashworth preferred for her daily practice sessions. The library, Mr. Ashworth's particular domain, required special care and attention. The leather-bound volumes that lined the walls from floor to ceiling were dusted regularly with soft brushes, their spines wiped clean and their gold lettering kept bright. Anne Richardson would move her ladder carefully from shelf to shelf, treating each book with the respect due to repositories of knowledge and culture. The reading table in the center of the room was polished daily, its leather top conditioned to maintain the proper texture and appearance. Mr. Ashworth's papers and correspondence were arranged according to his specific instructions, with business documents separated from personal letters, and everything organized in a system that reflected his methodical approach to life. The brass inkwell on his desk was cleaned and refilled daily, while the quill pens were trimmed and prepared for use. Even the blotting paper was changed regularly, ensuring that every aspect of his writing materials met the standards expected in a gentleman's study. The dining room presented its own challenges and opportunities for the household staff. The massive mahogany table that could seat 20 guests was polished weekly with a special mixture that brought out the wood's natural beauty, while the chairs around it were cleaned and their upholstery refreshed as needed. The sideboard that dominated one wall of the room held the family's finest china and crystal, each piece cleaned and arranged to show its best advantage. The chandelier that hung above the dining table was a masterpiece of Victorian craftsmanship, its hundreds of crystal drops requiring individual attention to maintain their brilliant sparkle. Mary Peterson would climb a tall ladder to reach each crystal, cleaning them with a soft cloth dampened with spirits of wine, working carefully to avoid disturbing the chandelier's perfect balance. When she finished, the entire fixture would catch and scatter the light like a captured rainbow, transforming the dining room into a space worthy of the most elegant entertainment. The daily preparation of the dining room for meals required careful attention to detail. The table would be set with mathematical precision, each piece of silverware placed exactly where etiquette demanded. The dinner plates, made of the finest bone china and decorated with the family's monogram, would be arranged with military accuracy, while the crystal glasses would be polished to absolute clarity. Fresh flowers from the household's own greenhouse would be arranged in silver vases, their colors carefully chosen to complement the room's decorating scheme and the season's natural palette dot as the morning progressed toward the civilized hour when the family would rise. The pace of household activity would intensify. Hot water would be carried to each bedroom, where it would be poured into wash basins and ewers that had been warmed by the fires lit earlier in the morning. The bedrooms themselves were sanctuaries of Victorian comfort, with their heavy furniture and rich fabrics creating environments that promoted rest and reflection. Mrs. Ashworth's bedroom was a masterpiece of feminine refinement, with its pale blue walls and white woodwork creating an atmosphere of serenity and peace. The four-poster bed, hung with curtains of the finest silk, dominated the room like a ship designed for dreams. The mattress, filled with down from specially selected geese, provided comfort that seemed to embrace the sleeper in clouds of softness. The bed linens, changed twice weekly and laundered with lavender water, carried the scent of English countryside gardens. The dressing table near the window held an array of silver-backed brushes and crystal bottles that contained the various toiletries and cosmetics that Victorian ladies used to maintain their appearance. Each bottle had its purpose and place, from rose water for refreshing the complexion to various powders and creams that promised to preserve the delicate beauty that society expected of respectable women. The mirror above the dressing table was silvered to perfection, providing a clear reflection that allowed for the careful attention to appearance that defined proper feminine behavior. The wardrobe that held Mrs. Ashworth's extensive collection of clothing was itself a work of art, with its carved panels and brass fittings reflecting the craftsmanship that went into every aspect of Victorian domestic life. Inside, her gowns hung in carefully organized rows, each dress representing hours of skilled needlework and attention to detail. The fabrics ranged from practical woolens for daily wear to elaborate silks for evening entertainment, each garment designed to project the appropriate image for its intended use. The morning routine of dressing was a complex ritual that required assistance from Jane Mitchell, Mrs. Ashworth's personal maid. Jane had been trained in the intricate process of helping a Victorian lady achieve the appearance that society demanded, from the proper arrangement of undergarments to the precise styling of hair that would remain perfect throughout the day. The process began with the careful selection of appropriate clothing, taking into account the day's planned activities, the weather, and the social requirements of each scheduled appointment. The undergarments alone represented a feat of engineering designed to create the idealized feminine silhouette that Victorian fashion demanded. The corset, made of finest whalebone and silk, required careful lacing to achieve the proper fit without compromising the wearer's health or comfort. Jane's experienced hands would work the laces with just the right tension, creating the fashionable waistline while ensuring that Mrs. Ashworth could breathe and move with reasonable comfort throughout her day. The process of arranging Mrs. Ashworth's hair was perhaps the most complex part of the morning routine. Victorian hairstyles required considerable skill and time to achieve properly, with elaborate arrangements of curls and braids that seemed to defy gravity while maintaining perfect elegance throughout the day. Jane would work with heated curling irons and various preparations that helped hold the style in place, creating configurations that complemented the shape of Mrs. Ashworth's face while conforming to the latest fashion requirements. Meanwhile, in his own bedroom, Mr. Ashworth would be preparing for his day with the assistance of his valet, Thomas Wilson. Thomas had served the family for 15 years, and his expertise in matters of masculine grooming and dress was renowned throughout the household. The morning routine began with Mr. Ashworth's bath, prepared in a copper tub that Thomas had filled with hot water carried up from the kitchen. The bath itself was a luxury that many Victorians could not afford, and the household took pride in maintaining the facilities that allowed such refined living. The process of shaving was a daily ritual that required considerable skill and attention. Thomas would prepare the shaving cream using a badger hair brush and fine English soap, working the mixture into a rich lather that would soften the beard and protect the skin. The razor, honed to perfect sharpness and maintained with religious care, would remove the previous day's growth with smooth strokes that left the skin clean and comfortable. After shaving, Thomas would apply various lotions and cologne that left Mr. Ashworth's face smooth and pleasant-smelling, ready for the day's business activities. The selection and arrangement of Mr. Ashworth's clothing required its own expertise and attention to detail. Each garment was carefully chosen to create the appropriate impression for the day's activities, with business attire selected for morning appointments and more formal wear prepared for evening social obligations. The shirts, made of finest linen and hand-sewn by expert seamstresses, were pressed to perfection and arranged so that every detail contributed to the overall effect of masculine respectability and success. As the morning progressed toward the breakfast hour, the various members of the household staff would complete their individual preparations and gather in the servants' hall for their own morning meal. This daily gathering provided an opportunity for coordination and communication, ensuring that everyone understood their responsibilities and that the day's activities would proceed with the smooth efficiency that the family expected. The servants' breakfast was a simpler affair than the elaborate meal being prepared for the family, but it was substantial and nourishing, providing the energy needed for a full day of demanding work. Mrs. Thompson would prepare porridge, bread, butter, and tea for the staff, ensuring that everyone began the day with adequate nourishment. The meal was eaten quickly, but not hurriedly, with conversation focusing on the day's planned activities and any special requirements that might affect the household routine. After breakfast, the staff would disperse to their various duties, each person carrying out their assigned responsibilities with the dedication and skill that maintained the household's reputation for excellence. The footmen, James Hartford and William Davies, would prepare the dining room for the family breakfast, setting the table with mathematical precision and ensuring that every detail met the exacting standards that Mrs. Ashworth expected. The family's breakfast was served at precisely 9 o'clock, a timing that allowed for the completion of morning preparations while conforming to the social expectations of their class and station. Mr. and Mrs. Ashworth would descend from their bedrooms, dressed and groomed to perfection, ready to begin another day of Victorian domestic life with all its rituals and responsibilities. The breakfast conversation would follow established patterns, with Mr. Ashworth discussing his plans for the day while Mrs. Ashworth shared information about her social obligations and household responsibilities. The children, when present during school holidays, would contribute their own news and concerns, creating a family dynamic that reflected the values and priorities of Victorian society. The morning meal itself was a carefully orchestrated affair, with each course served at the proper temperature and presented with the attention to detail that distinguished civilized dining from mere eating. The porridge would be perfectly smooth and creamy, the eggs cooked exactly to each person's preference, and the tea served at just the right strength and temperature. Fresh flowers on the table and perfectly pressed linens created an atmosphere of refinement that transformed a simple meal into a celebration of domestic achievement. After breakfast, the day's activities would begin in earnest, with each member of the family pursuing their own responsibilities and interests while the household staff continued their various duties. Mr. Ashworth would depart for his business offices in the city, traveling by private carriage that had been prepared and maintained by the household's groom and coachman. His departure was itself a small ceremony, with Thomas ensuring that his master's appearance remained perfect despite the journey through London's dusty streets. Mrs. Ashworth's morning activities typically began with a review of household accounts and planning sessions with Mrs. Foster, the housekeeper. These meetings would take place in the morning room, a smaller, more intimate space than the formal drawing room, where business could be conducted without the ceremonial atmosphere required for entertaining guests. The two women would discuss menus for upcoming meals, review supplies that needed to be ordered, and address any household issues that required attention. The planning of meals was a complex undertaking that required consideration of nutritional needs, seasonal availability of ingredients, social obligations, and budget constraints. Mrs. Ashworth would consult cookbooks and household management guides, comparing recipes and techniques while ensuring that every meal met the standards expected of a well-managed Victorian home. The seasonal nature of food production meant that menus had to be planned around the availability of fresh ingredients, with preserved foods filling gaps left by nature's cycles. The management of household supplies was another ongoing responsibility that required careful attention and planning. Mrs. Ashworth would review inventories of everything from candles and soap to tea and sugar, ensuring that adequate supplies were maintained without waste or excess. The ordering of goods required relationships with various tradesmen and suppliers, each specializing in particular products and services that contributed to the household's smooth operation. The morning correspondence was another important part of Mrs. Ashworth's daily routine. Letters from family members, friends, and various tradesmen would be opened and read, with responses drafted and prepared for sending. The art of letter writing was highly developed in Victorian society, with elaborate conventions governing everything from the selection of writing paper to the precise wording of various social communications. Social calling was an essential part of Victorian feminine life, requiring careful planning and preparation to ensure that all obligations were met and that proper relationships were maintained with other families of similar social standing. Mrs. Ashworth would review her calling list, planning routes that would allow her to visit multiple homes efficiently while ensuring that each call received appropriate time and attention. The timing of calls was governed by complex social rules that determined when visits were appropriate and how long they should. The preparation for morning calls required considerable attention to appearance and deportment. Mrs. Ashworth would select clothing appropriate for the social level of the home she planned to visit, ensuring that her appearance conveyed the proper messages about her family's status and respectability. The carriage would be prepared with fresh flowers and clean lap robes, while the coachman would receive instructions about timing and routes that would maximize the efficiency of the morning's social obligations. During Mrs. Ashworth's absence, The household staff would continue their various duties, taking advantage of the family's absence to conduct more intensive cleaning and maintenance activities. The drawing room would receive thorough attention, with furniture moved to allow cleaning of areas normally hidden from view. Carpets would be beaten and brushed, while windows would be cleaned inside and out to ensure maximum clarity and brightness. The kitchen activities would continue throughout the morning, with preparations for the midday meal beginning even before breakfast had been cleared away. Mrs. Thompson would begin preparing soups and other dishes that required long cooking times, while various vegetables would be cleaned and prepared for cooking later in the day. The rhythm of kitchen work was constant but not frantic, with each task flowing naturally into the next in a pattern established by years of experience. The daily marketing was another important responsibility that required knowledge of seasonal availability, quality standards, and fair pricing. Mrs. Thompson would either go to market herself or send one of the kitchen maids with detailed instructions about what to purchase and how much to pay. The relationships with various suppliers were carefully cultivated, ensuring that the household received the best available products at reasonable prices. The selection of meat was a particularly important responsibility, requiring expertise in judging quality and freshness while ensuring that purchases met the family's preferences and dietary requirements. The butcher would be visited regularly, with orders placed for delivery of various cuts that would be used in the elaborate meals that Victorian society expected of respectable households. The hanging and aging of meat was a carefully controlled process that required proper storage facilities and expert timing to achieve the best flavor and texture. The procurement of fresh vegetables and fruits required seasonal knowledge and careful selection to ensure that only the best products reached the family table. Mrs. Thompson would examine each item carefully, rejecting anything that failed to meet her exacting standards. The relationships with greengrocers and market vendors were carefully maintained, ensuring that the household received priority access to the choicest products available. The daily dairy deliveries were another important aspect of household management, with fresh milk, cream, and butter arriving daily from suppliers who maintained reputations for quality and reliability. The storage and handling of dairy products required careful attention to temperature and cleanliness, ensuring that these perishable items remained fresh and safe for consumption. The household's own dairy facilities, located in the basement near the kitchen, provided proper storage conditions while allowing for the preparation of various dairy products that enhanced the family's meals. As the morning progressed toward midday, the pace of household activities would intensify in preparation for the elaborate meal that formed the centerpiece of the Victorian day. The dining room would be prepared with even greater attention to detail than had been devoted to the breakfast service, with additional courses requiring more extensive table settings and more complex service requirements. The preparation of the midday meal was a culinary performance that showcased Mrs. Thompson's skills and the household's commitment to maintaining proper standards of hospitality and domestic achievement. Multiple courses would be prepared simultaneously, with careful timing, ensuring that each dish reached the table at the proper temperature and moment. The coordination required for such meals was remarkable, involving every member of the kitchen staff working together with clockwork precision. The first course typically consisted of soup, prepared from stocks that had been simmering for hours to achieve the proper richness and flavor. The soup would be served in fine china bowls, with careful attention to presentation and temperature. The bread that accompanied the soup would be freshly baked that morning, served warm with butter that had been shaped into decorative patterns that reflected the household's attention to detail. The fish course, when served, required particular expertise in preparation and presentation. Fresh fish, purchased early that morning from the most reliable suppliers, would be prepared using techniques that preserved its delicate flavor while creating visually appealing presentations. Sauces and accompaniments would be prepared separately, allowing each diner to customize their experience while maintaining the overall harmony of the meal. The meat course was the centerpiece of the midday meal, featuring roasts or other preparations that demonstrated the kitchen's skill and the household's prosperity. The cooking of meat required careful attention to timing and temperature, ensuring that each piece achieved the proper doneness while maintaining tenderness and flavor. The carving and presentation of meat was itself an art form, with skilled servants creating portions that were both generous and elegantly arranged. The vegetable accompaniments were prepared with equal care, featuring seasonal selections that had been chosen for their quality and prepared using techniques that preserved their natural flavors while enhancing their visual appeal. The arrangement of vegetables on serving platters was itself a form of artistic expression, with colors and textures combined to create presentations that please the eye as well as the palate. The dessert course provided opportunities for the household's most creative culinary expressions, featuring elaborate preparations that showcase both technical skill and artistic vision. Puddings, tarts, and other sweets would be prepared using recipes passed down through generations, with each household maintaining specialties that reflected their particular traditions and preferences. The presentation of desserts required special attention to visual appeal, with decorative elements that transformed simple sweets into memorable artistic creations. The service of these elaborate meals required coordination between multiple servants, each trained in the precise movements and timing that ensured smooth, efficient presentation without disruption to the diner's conversation and enjoyment. The footman would move around the table in choreographed patterns, serving each course with the quiet efficiency that characterized well-trained domestic staff. The afternoon hours brought their own rhythm and activities to the Victorian household. After the substantial midday meal, there would typically be a period of relative quiet, with family members pursuing individual interests, while the household staff cleaned up from the meal service and prepared for the evenings. Activities. Mrs. Ashworth's afternoon activities might include needlework sessions in the morning room, where she would work on elaborate embroidery projects or other decorative items that showcased feminine accomplishment, while contributing to the household's comfort and beauty. The needlework itself was both recreational and practical, producing items that served useful purposes while demonstrating the skills and refinement that Victorian society expected of accomplished ladies. The afternoon reading was another important part of cultivated Victorian life, with various publications providing information about current events, literature, and social developments. Mrs. Ashworth would review the latest issues of ladies' magazines, which offered advice on fashion, household management, and social etiquette, while also providing serialized stories and other entertainment. The library would provide access to books on various subjects, allowing for the intellectual development that was considered essential for proper feminine education. The preparation for afternoon tea was another daily ritual that required careful attention to detail and timing. Tea service in Victorian households was an elaborate ceremony that showcased the family's refinement while providing opportunities for social interaction and relaxation. The preparation began hours in advance, with various cakes, biscuits, and other accompaniments prepared fresh for each service. The tea itself would be prepared using the finest available leaves, with careful attention to brewing time and temperature to ensure optimal flavor and strength. The service would include multiple varieties of tea, allowing for individual preferences while maintaining the overall quality and presentation that distinguish proper tea service from mere refreshment. The china used for tea service would be the household's finest, with delicate patterns and gold trim that reflected the family's status and taste. The accompaniments for afternoon tea were prepared with equal care, featuring fresh-baked items that complemented the tea while providing sustenance for the late afternoon hours. Small cakes, delicate biscuits, and various preserves would be arranged on tiered serving stands, creating presentations that were both visually appealing and practically convenient for service and consumption. The social aspects of afternoon tea were as important as the refreshments themselves, providing opportunities for conversation and interaction that strengthened family bonds while maintaining proper standards of behavior and etiquette. The timing and duration of tea service was carefully controlled, ensuring that it provided adequate refreshment without interfering with the time with the swearing with the fingers. Preparation for the evening meal. As the afternoon progressed toward evening, the household would begin preparations for the day's final major meal, which would be even more elaborate than the midday service. The dining room would be prepared with special attention to lighting and atmosphere, with candles providing illumination that created the proper mood for evening entertainment and family interaction. The preparation of the evening meal required the full resources of the kitchen staff, with multiple courses featuring the finest ingredients and most sophisticated preparation techniques available to the household. The timing and coordination required for evening service was even more complex than that needed for earlier meals, as social obligations and family preferences demanded presentations that met the highest standards of culinary and artistic achievement. The evening toilette was another elaborate ritual that required considerable time and attention. Both Mr. and Mrs. Ashworth would change into formal attire appropriate for evening activities, with their respective servants providing assistance in achieving the appearance that Victorian society expected for evening social interaction. The selection of appropriate clothing, jewelry, and accessories required expert knowledge of fashion and etiquette, ensuring that every detail contributed to the overall effect of refined elegance. The evening activities of the Victorian household provided opportunities for family interaction, entertainment, and cultural development that were considered essential for maintaining proper standards of civilization and refinement. Music, reading, and conversation would fill the hours between the evening meal and bedtime, creating an atmosphere of domestic tranquility that reflected the values and priorities of Victorian family life. The musical entertainment was a particularly important part of evening activities, with various family members contributing their talents while guests and other family members provided appreciative audiences. Mrs. Ashworth's piano performances would feature popular compositions and classical pieces that demonstrated her musical education and cultural refinement, while other family members might contribute vocal performances or other musical skills that enhanced the overall entertainment value of the evening. The evening reading provided opportunities for intellectual development and family bonding, with various publications and books shared among family members while maintaining conversation about current events, literature, and other topics of general interest. The selection of reading material was carefully considered, ensuring that it provided both entertainment and educational value while conforming to the moral and social standards that governed proper Victorian family life. The conversation that filled the evening hours was itself an art form, requiring knowledge of appropriate topics and proper etiquette while providing opportunities for the exchange of ideas and information that strengthened family relationships and social connections. The ability to maintain interesting and appropriate conversation was considered an essential skill for both men and women, requiring cultivation and practice to achieve the standards expected in polite society. As the evening progressed toward bedtime, the household would begin the gradual process of concluding the day's activities and preparing for the night's rest. The servants would begin clearing away the evidence of the day's meals and activities, while ensuring that the house was secured and prepared for the night hours. The fires would be banked to provide warmth throughout the night while preventing safety hazards, and various security measures would be taken to protect the household's safety and property. The bedtime preparations were as elaborate as the morning routines, requiring assistance from personal servants who would help family members change into appropriate nightwear while ensuring that bedrooms were prepared for a comfortable rest. The beds would be turned down and warmed with heated bricks or other devices that provided comfort during the cool London nights, while various toiletries and other necessities would be arranged for convenient use during the night hours. The final prayers and devotions that concluded each Victorian day provided opportunities for reflection and spiritual development that were considered essential for proper Christian living. Family members would gather for brief religious observances that reinforced the moral and spiritual values that guided their daily lives, while providing a sense of closure and completeness that prepared them for restful sleep. As the household settled into the quiet hours of night, the various sounds and activities that had filled the day would gradually fade into peaceful silence. The servants would complete their final duties and retire to their own quarters, while family members would settle into their comfortable beds, surrounded by the familiar sounds and sensations that defined their secure and well-ordered world. The night hours brought their own gentle rhythm to the Victorian household, with the soft ticking of clocks and the distant sounds of the city creating a peaceful background for restorative sleep. The household would rest secure in the knowledge that another day of civilized living had been successfully completed, and that the morning would bring another opportunity to maintain the fastidious standards of domestic achievement that defined their place in Victorian society. The changing seasons brought their own variations to the daily rhythms of Victorian household life, with each time of year requiring different approaches to food, clothing, eating, and various other aspects of domestic management. Spring brought opportunities for thorough cleaning and renovation, with household staff conducting intensive maintenance activities that refreshed and renewed every aspect of the domestic environment. The spring cleaning was a massive undertaking that involved every member of the household staff working together to achieve standards of cleanliness, an order that went far beyond the daily maintenance routines. Carpets would be removed and beaten, furniture would be moved and thoroughly cleaned, and windows would be washed inside and out to let in the maximum amount of spring sunshine. The process took weeks to complete, but left the entire household feeling refreshed and renewed for the coming year. Summer brought its own pleasures and challenges, with opportunities for fresh ingredients from the household's own gardens balanced against the difficulties of maintaining comfort and food safety during the warmest months. The gardens provided fresh vegetables, fruits, and flowers that enhanced both the nutrition and beauty of daily life, while requiring considerable labor and expertise to maintain proper productivity throughout the growing season. The preservation of summer's abundance for winter consumption was a major undertaking that required knowledge of traditional techniques, combined with careful attention to sanitation and storage conditions. Fruits would be preserved in various forms. Vegetables would be pickled or stored in root cellars, and various other methods would be employed to ensure that the household could enjoy high-quality food throughout the year regardless of seasonal availability. Autumn brought the satisfaction of completed harvests and the anticipation of cozy winter evenings, with various preparation activities ensuring that the household would remain comfortable and well supplied throughout the colder months. The laying in of winter supplies was a complex logistical undertaking that required careful planning and considerable storage capacity to ensure that everything needed for comfortable winter living would be available when required. Winter brought its own special pleasures to the Victorian household, with longer evening hours providing increased opportunities for family activities and social interaction. The management of heating systems required constant attention to ensure adequate warmth while minimizing fuel costs and safety hazards. But the reward was a sense of cozy comfort that made the house a refuge from the cold and darkness of London winters. The holiday celebrations of the winter season provided opportunities for the household to demonstrate its highest levels of hospitality and domestic achievement. Christmas preparations began weeks in advance, with special foods prepared, decorations, created and gift-giving planned to ensure that the season would be memorable and meaningful for all family members and guests. The daily rhythms that governed Victorian household life created a sense of security and continuity that provided psychological comfort along with physical well-being. Each day brought its familiar patterns and reliable routines, ensuring that family members could focus on their individual pursuits and responsibilities while knowing that their domestic needs would be met with consistent excellence and attention to detail. The servants who made this comfortable life possible took pride in their professional skills and their contribution to the household's success and reputation. Their work required considerable knowledge and expertise, from the complex timing required for elaborate meals to the specialized techniques needed for maintaining various types of furniture, fabrics, and household equipment. The best servants developed their skills over years of experience, becoming valued members of the household whose expertise was essential for maintaining proper standards. The relationships between family members and servants were governed by elaborate social conventions that ensured mutual respect while maintaining appropriate class distinctions. Good employers took responsibility for their servants' welfare and professional development, providing training opportunities and fair treatment that encouraged loyalty and excellence in service. The result was often relationships that lasted for decades, with servants becoming trusted members of extended household families. The children who grew up in these well-managed Victorian households learned important lessons about responsibility, attention to detail, and the satisfaction that comes from maintaining high standards in all aspects of life. They observed daily examples of dedicated work and professional excellence, developing appreciation for the skills and commitment required to create comfortable and civilized living conditions. The educational opportunities available to Victorian children were enhanced by the domestic environment in which they lived, with daily exposure to literature, music, art, and cultured conversation that supplemented formal schooling while providing practical examples of intellectual and cultural achievement. The household library, musical instruments, and various cultural activities created an atmosphere of learning and development that encouraged children to develop their own talents and interests. The social connections that extended from well-managed Victorian households created networks of relationships that enriched family life while providing opportunities for business, cultural, and personal development. The reputation for hospitality and domestic excellence that came from maintaining proper household standards opened doors to social and economic opportunities that benefited entire families for generations. The seasonal entertaining that was an important part of Victorian social life required the full resources of well-managed households, with elaborate dinner parties and other social events showcasing both the family's hospitality and the servants' professional skills. These occasions provided opportunities for strengthening existing relationships while creating new connections that enriched the family's social and cultural life. The careful planning required for successful entertainment began weeks in advance, with Mrs. Ashworth consulting her extensive collection of household management guides and entertaining manuals to ensure that every detail would meet the exacting standards expected by their social circle. The guest list would be carefully considered, balancing considerations of social obligation, personal preference, and the practical limitations of the dining room's capacity, and the kitchen's ability to serve elaborate meals to larger groups. The preparation of menus for formal entertainment required consultation between Mrs. Ashworth and Mrs. Thompson, with both women contributing their expertise to create meals that would showcase the household's culinary capabilities while accommodating the dietary preferences and restrictions of expected guests. The selection of wines and other beverages required knowledge of proper pairings and seasonal appropriateness, while the timing of various courses needed to be calculated to ensure that the evening would flow smoothly from beginning to end. The preparation of the house for entertaining required intensive cleaning and decoration activities that went far beyond the daily maintenance routines. Fresh flowers would be arranged throughout the public rooms, with careful attention to color coordination and seasonal appropriateness. The dining room would receive special attention, with the best china, crystal, and silver brought out and polished to perfection, while additional tables and seating might be arranged to accommodate larger groups than usual. The coordination of service for formal entertainment required all available household staff working together with military precision, each person understanding their specific responsibilities, while remaining flexible enough to handle unexpected situations that might arise during the evening. The footman would be specially trained in the proper service techniques for elaborate meals. All the kitchen staff would work extended hours to ensure that every dish met the highest standards of preparation and presentation. The entertainment itself provided opportunities for the family to demonstrate their cultural accomplishments and social graces, with musical performances, literary discussions, and other cultured activities that reflected the educational and artistic values that defined proper Victorian society. Mrs. Ashworth might perform selected pieces on the piano, while other family members would contribute their own talents to create an evening of refined pleasure that would be remembered favorably by all attendees. The management of conversation during formal entertainment required considerable skill and social sensitivity, with hostesses needing to ensure that discussions remained appropriate and engaging while avoiding controversial topics that might create discomfort or conflict among guests with different political or social views. The ability to guide conversation skillfully while appearing completely natural was considered one of the highest accomplishments of successful Victorian hostesses. The conclusion of formal entertainment required its own careful management, with the timing of departure needing to be handled diplomatically to ensure that guests felt neither rushed nor obligated to remain longer than appropriate. The serving of final refreshments, the arrangement for guest transportation, and the exchange of social pleasantries all required attention to ensure that the evening ended on a positive note that would enhance the family's reputation for successful hospitality. The recovery period following formal entertainment was almost as important as the preparation, with household staff requiring time to clean and restore the house to its normal condition while family members reviewed the evening's successes and areas for improvement in future entertaining efforts. The lessons learned from each social event would be incorporated into planning for future occasions, creating a continuous process of refinement and improvement in the household's entertaining capabilities. The religious observances that punctuated Victorian family life provided structure and meaning that complemented the domestic routines while reinforcing the moral and spiritual values that guided proper behavior. The weekly attendance at Sunday services was a family obligation that required its own preparation and coordination, with appropriate clothing selected and arrangements made for transportation to and from church in the family carriage. The preparation for Sunday services began on Saturday evening, with servants ensuring that the family's Sunday clothing was properly cleaned and pressed, while breakfast preparations were adjusted to accommodate the earlier departure time required for morning worship. The selection of appropriate attire for church attendance required consideration of seasonal weather conditions, the formality of the particular service, and the social expectations of the congregation to which the family belonged. The Sunday routine differed significantly from weekday patterns, with household activities reduced to essential maintenance, while family members devoted time to religious observance, family interaction, and quiet reflection. The meals served on Sunday were typically less elaborate than weekday presentations, though still prepared with the same attention to quality and presentation that characterized all household food service. The afternoon and evening hours of Sunday provided opportunities for family activities that were not always possible during the busy weekday schedule, with reading, conversation, and quiet games creating an atmosphere of domestic tranquility that reinforced family bonds, while providing rest and restoration. Before the beginning of another busy week of household activities and social obligations, the seasonal festivals and holidays that marked the Victorian calendar required special preparations and celebrations that showcased the household's ability to create memorable experiences while maintaining the highest standards of domestic management. Christmas preparations began in early December, with special foods prepared and stored, decorations created and arranged, and gifts purchased or made for family members and household staff. The traditional Christmas feast required weeks of preparation, with special puddings made and aged, various preserves and delicacies prepared, and elaborate decorations created to transform the dining room into a festive celebration space. The coordination of Christmas meal service required all the household's resources, with every member of the staff contributing their skills to create a memorable celebration that would be cherished by family members for years to come. The exchange of Christmas gifts was governed by elaborate social conventions that ensured appropriate recognition of relationships and service while maintaining proper class distinctions between family members and servants. The selection of gifts required considerable thought and planning, with choices reflecting both the giver's appreciation and the recipient's position within the household hierarchy. The New Year celebrations provided opportunities for reflection on the past year's achievements and planning for improvements and changes in the coming year. Household accounts would be reviewed and budgets prepared for the coming 12 months, while staff performance would be evaluated and any necessary adjustments made to ensure continued excellence. In domestic management, the coming of spring brought its own special pleasures and challenges to the Victorian household, with the longer days and warmer weather creating opportunities for activities that had been impossible during the winter months. The opening of windows and doors allowed fresh air to circulate throughout the house, while the renewal of plant life in the gardens provided fresh flowers and vegetables that enhanced both the beauty and nutrition of daily life. The spring cleaning that marked the transition from winter to warmer weather was a massive undertaking that required weeks of intensive work by the entire household staff. Every room in the house would be thoroughly cleaned and refreshed, with furniture moved, carpets removed and cleaned, windows washed, and various maintenance tasks completed that had been deferred. During the winter months, when outdoor work was difficult or impossible, the reopening of the gardens for spring planting required coordination between the household's gardening staff and the kitchen requirements for fresh vegetables and herbs throughout the growing season. Seeds would be started in hothouses or cold frames, while the soil would be prepared and fertilized to ensure optimal growing conditions for the coming year's crops. Renewal of social activities that came with spring weather provided opportunities for entertaining that had been limited during the winter months, with garden parties and outdoor activities becoming possible as temperatures became more comfortable and daylight hours extended into the evening. The preparation of outdoor entertaining spaces required different skills and considerations than indoor events, but provided opportunities for showcasing the household's versatility and adaptability. The management of household finances was an ongoing responsibility that required careful attention throughout the year, with detailed records maintained of all income and expenditures to ensure that the family lived within their means while maintaining appropriate standards of comfort and hospitality. The preparation of annual budgets required balancing competing demands for household improvements, staff wages, food and clothing expenses, and various social obligations that were essential for maintaining the family's position in society. The relationships with various tradesmen and suppliers required ongoing cultivation and management to ensure that the household received quality goods and services at fair prices while maintaining the credit relationships that allowed for efficient purchasing and payment arrangements. The selection of suppliers was based on considerations of quality, reliability, and price, but also on the social relationships that were important for maintaining the household's reputation and standing within the community. The training and development of household staff was an ongoing responsibility that required balancing the need for immediate competence with the longer-term benefits of investing in staff education and skill development. New servants would be trained by experienced staff members, while existing employees would be encouraged to develop additional skills that would make them more valuable to the household and more satisfied with their working conditions. The management of household health and safety required constant attention to sanitation, food safety, and various other factors that could affect the well-being of family members and staff. The preparation and storage of food required knowledge of proper techniques for preventing spoilage and contamination, while the maintenance of heating and lighting systems required regular inspection and maintenance to prevent accidents or health hazards. The preservation of family traditions and customs was an important responsibility that ensured continuity between generations while adapting to changing circumstances and social expectations. Family recipes would be carefully maintained and passed down to new cooks, while various celebration and entertainment traditions would be preserved and modified as appropriate for contemporary conditions. The documentation of household activities and expenses provided records that were useful for future planning while creating historical archives that preserved information about Victorian domestic life for future generations. The detailed journals and account books maintained by successful households provided valuable information about the costs, techniques, and social expectations that define upper-class domestic life during this important period in English social history. The legacy of Victorian domestic management extended far beyond immediate comfort and satisfaction of family members, creating standards and traditions that would influence household management practices for generations. The attention to detail, commitment to excellence, and systematic approach to domestic organization that characterized the best Victorian households established principles that remained relevant long after the specific social conditions that created them had passed into history. As base, our gentle journey through the rhythms of Victorian daily life draws to a close. We can appreciate the care and dedication that transformed routine household tasks into meaningful rituals that created comfort, beauty, and security for those fortunate enough to live within well-managed domestic environments. The quiet satisfaction that came from maintaining high standards in every aspect of daily life created a sense of accomplishment and pride that enriched the lives of both family members and servants who participated in these elaborate domestic productions. The peaceful conclusion of another Victorian day would find the household settling into the restful quiet of evening, with family members and servants alike secure in the knowledge that another day of civilized living had been successfully completed. The familiar sounds of the settling house, the gentle ticking of clocks, and the distant murmur of London's evening activities would combine to create an atmosphere of domestic tranquility that promised restful sleep and dreams of tomorrow's gentle continuation of life's comfortable rhythms. In this world of careful attention to detail and dedication to excellence, every aspect of daily life held meaning and purpose, creating a tapestry of domestic achievement that provided security, beauty, and satisfaction for all who participated in its creation. The legacy of these careful domestic traditions reminds us that true luxury lies not in expensive possessions, but in the quality of attention and care that we bring to the simple acts of daily living that shape our daily experience and create the foundation for meaningful, satisfying life. And so our Victorian household settles into peaceful sleep, surrounded by the familiar comforts created through dedicated work and careful attention to detail. dreaming perhaps of tomorrow's opportunities to continue the gentle art of civilized domestic life that made each day a celebration of human capability and care.